Guys, before we get started today, a big thank you to American Hartford Gold for sponsoring this channel. Look, inflation is still up there. We don't know when it's going to be corrected, but one of the best ways to protect yourself against inflation is investing in precious metals, and the only company I trust to do that with is American Hartford Gold. They've got an A+ on the Better Business Bureau, a 5-star rating. They have a bunch of experts that will help you walk you through everything to make sure you're diversified. And right now when you call, they'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order. So call now. It's 844-940-0662, or you can text HEAVY to 65532. Tell them I sent you. They'll take care of you. So folks, we've got something pretty interesting to talk about today. Is the ATF going to be disbanded? It's a strong no. I mean, what does the ATF really do? Do they do anything with tobacco and firearms? I mean, have you ever heard somebody, I don't know, like selling tobacco and like have an ATF agent show up and go through all their records? No. Alcohol, they don't do that either. There's a whole different entity, I forget what it's called, that checks on bars and places like that. So really, it's just the firearms agency. And all they do, as this gentleman said one time, when he got a knock on the door from the ATF, is they infringe on our rights. So I have a quick question. Why not just get rid of them? If you think they're infringing on people's rights, is that something you can negotiate with? Like, oh, okay, you're infringing on Americans' rights, but we're gonna keep you. It's kind of like a shit employee. Hey, look, you suck at your job, you show up late, you don't care about your job, and your work sucks. But you know what? We're just gonna keep you on payroll forever. What motivation is there for them to change? Why not? Hey, ATF, we are cutting all of your salaries by 50%. If we hear of one scenario where you show up at somebody's house bugging them about a trigger or a solvent trap or something that they bought, we're cutting your salaries even more, or we're laying you off. Why not something like that? The reason why I'm talking about this is the FBI director, Kash Patel. Apparently he has plans to cut back on the ATF. So 1,000 agents. I don't know if it's confirmed or not. I've heard a lot of reports. Some people are saying it's BS. But at this point, if he hasn't disbanded or has plans to disband the ATF, I don't know what to believe. Maybe they think they can fix it? What is there to fix? We don't need an agency for our Second Amendment. But apparently there's reports that he's transferring 1,000 agents from the ATF to the FBI. And my God, if that's true, that is going to be a hellstorm that we aren't ready for. Listen to this.
Moving agents out of D.C. and back into the field, which is where they really ought to be. Why is that important to you?
Well, Trey, this is my first media appearance since taking the job, and I'm glad that it's on your wonderful show. And what I want to do is highlight for the American public that there's 38,000 employees at the FBI. If you take the national capital region, as the folks around Washington, D.C. call it, the 50-mile radius around Washington, D.C., we have 11,000 employees for the FBI in that 50-mile radius, give or take. And a third of the crime does not happen in this region. A large portion of one of my priorities, fighting violent crime, crushing narco traffickers, stopping fentanyl overdoses, is happening in any town USA across this country. And they need resources in the form not just of money, but manpower. So we're going to reorient our assets in Washington. We're going to look at it strategically, as we've been doing the last month, and send our agents and analysts and SOS operatives into the field to take on this violent crime explosion that has occurred over these last 4 or 5 years, and to make sure that every state and every county, be it in my hometown of Las Vegas, Nevada, or up in Montana or in Kansas or Iowa or Maine, is all safe and secure. And the best way to do that is through a proper show of force with the FBI men and women who do this job so courageously every day out in the streets fighting crime.
Okay, great. So he is relocating a third of what sounds like all of the FBI agents to the field. Were a third of the FBI agents just not in the field? They were just on computers all day? Sounds like it from Biden's stuff. But look, ultimately, I don't want to be too hard on this whole thing because there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of people out there who are kind of in-betweeners, like, oh no, we need gun control, but we don't need as much as, Biden had. This is not like a war saying for us when we say disband the ATF. Screw the ATF. Let's remove them from the thought process. Congress needs to remove the things that give them power. Remove the NFA. That's a major infringement on our rights. Oh my God, a suppressor, it makes your gun so quiet. No, it doesn't. And ultimately, we need to take the focus off of it. It is a right for you and me that is God-given. If we can use a staple gun, if we can use an axe, if we can use a knife to defend ourselves, what is the difference? It's more effective, so therefore you have to restrict it. When you go to Home Depot and you buy a staple gun, does the ATF get involved? Because you can kill somebody with a staple gun just as easy as with a gun. No, they don't, because it's a tool. Why are guns not looked at like what they are? They're a fucking tool. Oh, because some judge in the Supreme Court or wherever said, oh, we've got to restrict these. You know what I think? I think restricting rights of Americans is very dangerous because you're pushing all of us. Why not just leave us the fuck alone? You know, progress is great. And I think Kash Patel's doing a good job for, you know, what he has to deal with there. But why not just leave us alone? Why not focus all of the efforts on legitimate criminals, and then once all of those people are taken care of, and I mean all of them, then maybe we'll listen. But until then, if there are any infringements still being introduced or not being changed, you are not a part of the Second Amendment. You are not a Second Amendment person. You're well, I have guns, but I mean, I don't want you to have them. I think that's ultimately the problem with our government, the Supreme Court, anybody who's making decisions on the Second Amendment, is they see themselves as higher than you or me. Oh, well, look, I can do what I want because I know me, but you, I don't know you. I mean, you could be nuts. What if you did something? The Second Amendment says well-regulated. It does not mean government regulated. It means self-regulation. And Americans are capable of self-regulating themselves, period. We do not need Big Brother. We do not need somebody holding our hands. We can figure it out on our own. And as much as this administration is trying to paint the FBI, the ATF, all of the Department of Justice as this new and improved thing, if you are not legitimately taking steps to remove the infringements on our rights, it's the same exact thing, it's just at a lesser level.